What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Missouri Tigers, as well as my co-host Brayden Dowers, or today I guess he's calling himself Mac and Cheese Brayden. So yeah, it's a great time to be eating mac and cheese because, well, mac and cheese, they call it liquid gold, pretty essentially, and gold is the color of the Missouri Tigers, and the Missouri Tigers are hot right now. This is going to be our transfer portal PALOOZA episode where we just kind of talk about everything going on in the world of Missouri Tigers recruiting, as well as a little bit about the schedule release since that happened. But that pretty much ties into recruiting as well. So we're going to break it all down for you guys. Signing day is next week. We are just a few days away from signing day, and some of the top uncommitted targets left on Mizzou's board are set to make their decision over the next week or so, as well as a ton of transfers. So we're going to get into it. Now, Brayden, typically this is where I would kick it to you and ask you what you want to talk about, but I kind of want to start with what's fresh in everyone's mind still. We got to talk about what happened yesterday with four-star running back commit Kwan Lacey out of Lancaster, Texas. Lacey, if you guys didn't know, was one of the top uncommitted running backs left in the 2024 class. He's a top 250 player in the 2024 class. Pretty much everyone leading up to the announcement had him going to Ole Miss. He seemed like an Ole Miss lock. Bama was also in there. He called Bama his dream school in an interview with On3 Sports. Mizzou kind of seemed like they were on the outside looking in, but then just about an hour before the announcement, crystal ball started flipping. Gabe Diarman of Power Mizzou reported that there was some late momentum for Mizzou. It seemed as if Eli Drinkwitz learned from the Ryan Wingo situation where Texas kind of crept up on that recruitment the night before, and then everyone had him going to Missouri, and then boom, he commits to Texas. Well, in this one, Eli Drinkwitz seems to have come in with a last-minute bag drop, and he secured the commitment of Kwan Lacey, and that's a massive commitment because Bama and Ole Miss wanted him bad, and Eli Drinkwitz flexed his recruiting muscle just a little bit there, getting Lacey on board for 2024, because this is a kid that I think, and the staff probably thinks, can contribute heavily as a freshman. But Brayden, what are your thoughts on the Kwan Lacey commitment and just kind of all this, the shock that was involved in that one?
I didn't think too much of it when I first saw it because I was at my brother's middle school orchestra concert. But I didn't get to react much whenever I initially saw it. I'm like, oh, we got a good running back. Cool. I didn't even know that we were in on him. And then once I saw the entire freak out, I'm like, what the hell is this about? And then I figured out, I'm like, holy shit, we just pulled off a reverse Ryan Wingo.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Because
very happy with it. You said top 250. I've seen him as number 90, like consensus, I think on 27 or 247. Sixth running back in the class. Very excited to have him. Very excited to have the Georgia State running back. But we'll get into all the transfers here in a second.
Yeah, for sure. I also know that Kwan Lacey had some like blazing fast track time. He's up there with like the Devin Chains and the Tyreek Hill. Not quite Tyreek Hill because no one's Tyreek Hill, but Lacey's a burner for sure. He's got B button speed, really, really fast, really explosive. So I'm excited for him. Man, there's so much other news to talk about though in recruiting right now. Before we get into the potentials, let's kind of start with who Mizzou has gotten since the last time we talked. So there was also Marcus Carroll, the other running back commit from the transfer portal. He came from Georgia State. I believe he led the Sun Belt in rushing last year, ran for over 1,300 yards. A lot of schools were in on this guy, or they wanted to get him in on a visit, but Missouri got the first visit, and he committed shortly after his visit. Watching a little bit of his game film, he kind of reminds me of a more explosive Cody Schrader because he's a one cut and go type of guy. And he did an interview with Power Mizzou on their YouTube channel last night. It was a live interview. And he talked about that outside zone running scheme that Mizzou loves to run. He thinks he could thrive in it, which watching his film, I mean, he's explosive. I like the way he plays. I think he can step in and be a bell cow back for the Missouri Tigers next year. And I'm sure Missouri will still look to add running backs either through the transfer portal or through high school recruiting. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. But Marcus Carroll definitely seems like a great grab early in the transfer portal period because you needed a starting running back for next year. And it's like that box is checked off now, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was the number 3 ranked running back in the class. The only guys that I saw him behind were Etienne and Rocket Sanders. So to get the number 3 running back in the class already, massive. I watched a little bit of him. I saw just a few clips of what he's able to do. I mean, honestly, yeah, he definitely does remind me of Cody. I'm not sure if he's going to be as good as Cody, mainly because I was doing a lot of just advanced research numbers into college football last night, and the amount of blocks that Mizzou were like the holes that they were able to make for Schrader were insane. And we're obviously losing a few guys like Javon Foster. So I think that getting a solid left tackle is going to be a little bit more important, but still very, very excited for Corral. That was his name.
Marcus Carroll.
Mark Carroll. Okay. Got to start learning these names already. Get ready for spring ball.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of new ones coming into here over the next week or so. Next guy that we never had a chance to talk about was cornerback Toriano Pride. He was the number 1 ranked cornerback in the portal, coming from Clemson, former East St. Louis guy, high school teammates with Luther Burden. Whenever he entered the portal, he attached a no contact tag next to his name, meaning he did not want to be contacted by other coaches. And everyone kind of knew whenever that news came with the fact that he entered the portal that he was the Missouri Tigers to lose because that one had been rumored well before he had entered the portal. And then when he entered the portal, it's like, yep, Missouri. And it didn't take long for him to announce. I don't even think he visited anywhere. He just kind of knew he was going to Mizzou. That's a really good grab, too, because you're losing Rakestraw, you're losing KAD to the NFL. You're going to have to replace both of them. You have some depth guys that can step in at least in one starter spot next year. I feel like, a combination of like Marcus Clark, Drayden Norwood, guys who played a lot this past year, but you definitely needed another starter to add to this room through the portal. So that was great getting a defensive back. I don't know if they'll try to get another corner or another defensive back. We'll have to see, but Toriano Pride, if he's the only guy they bring in, that's still a really good addition. So any additional thoughts on the Toriano Pride addition?
Not really. I mean, once we saw that he was entered in the portal and Abe said like expect this guy to be a Tiger, basically is what he said. I mean, I didn't really have too many thoughts. I didn't realize that he was as good as he is, because when I saw the name, I'm like, oh, Clemson corner. And I watched a lot of Clemson football this year, but I never really paid too much attention. But I went back and I watched some more Clemson games, and he's insane. And putting him in Blake Baker's defense, I really think that we might be sending him to the NFL because he was pretty good at Clemson last year, and I like the attributes that he has to go off here at Mizzou.
Yeah, he I don't remember how many games he played in this past year at Clemson, but I know he played quite a bit the year before and burned his red shirt. And Clemson was still a top 25 defense this past season. They were not a great team overall, but their defense was definitely the stronger side of the ball this year, and he was a part of that. So when you're adding a guy who still played significantly for top 25 defense, that's always a good thing. This isn't exactly a kid who wasn't getting on the field at his old school or anything like that. I mean, he burned his red shirt as a freshman, so you're also getting some experience with him too. Those are really the only 2 additions, unless I'm forgetting anybody through the transfer portal so far. Obviously, Mizzou is in on a lot more guys. I'll get to the transfer portal in a second, though. I want to stick with high school recruiting, especially with signing day being on December 20th. So, big targets still left on the board. they got Kawan Lacey, Jamarion Burnett, who was the other 4-star running back that they were in on. A lot of people kind of saw him as a consolation prize to uh, Kawan Lacey, but instead, um, they could be getting a pretty good running back duo in this 2024 high school class. Jamarion Burnett, he's also a 4-star, decommitted from Auburn earlier in the cycle. Missouri has been really high on him, and he's also been high on Missouri, it appears, if you look at his social media. Gabe DeArmond of Power Mizzou said that the Tigers would still take both of them. I don't know what that means for portal recruiting. Like, if they get Burnett, I don't know if they would stop taking portal running backs, or it's like if they don't get Burnett, then they look for a portal running back. Maybe it just doesn't matter and they get another guy, even if they get Burnett. I know he tweeted that Mizzou would be interested in Marks from Mississippi State. So we'll see. But Jamarion Burnett would still be a pretty good addition to this class too. And then there's Courtney Crutchfield, the former Arkansas commit, 4-star wide receiver. High school teammates with current Mizzou commit Austin Dendy, the athlete out of Arkansas. He's a big one because after losing out on Ryan Wingo, a lot of people question whether or not Mizzou would still try to get another big receiver in this class. They seem to focus their attention on Crutchfield, though, after he decommitted from Arkansas. That would be a really good addition. Arkansas seems to be making a late push to try and get his commitment back after the Bobby Petrino hire, but I saw some Arkansas account on Twitter that seems to tweet a lot of recruiting news, say something to the effect of Mizzou has the lead in this thing and they're offering more money than Arkansas for Courtney Crutchfield as far as NIL goes. We'll see what happens. He's visiting Missouri this weekend. Usually when you get the last official visit right before, a commitment, that's always a good thing. You get the chance to make the last impression and all that stuff. And it seems like the Tigers already kind of have the lead. That's the consensus right now. And that's before the visit. I feel like the visit will only help those vibes heading into signing day. But that would be quite the get, grabbing a 4-star wide receiver that was once committed to Arkansas. Just more salt in the wound for the Piggies this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's always going to feel good to just take somebody away from Arkansas because screw the Piggies. Always, never stop beating up on the Piggies. But at the same time, whenever we missed out on Ryan Wingo and everybody was really down, I didn't care that much because we have Luther Burden. We are getting James Madison. Joshua Manning, I think, is still here. I haven't seen him announce that he's leaving.
Yeah, he's still here, and he burned his red shirt too. He still played a lot as a freshman.
Exactly. I mean, we got like the entire wide receiver core that we had last year is staying, and we're adding James Madison. Like, with how important playing time is to these guys, I'm not sure. Like, Ryan Wingo obviously would have gotten snaps, but where? Because we wouldn't have been able to put him into full effect like we were able to put Luther into year one, because Luther was like the prize. He was the guy for Mizzou, and he was really the first domino to fall that kicked off this entire just insane recruiting cycle that Drink has been going on to get these absolutely stud prospects. So if we don't get Crutchfield, I'm not going to feel too bad. Like, oh, well, wide receivers never really going to feel like a concern at Mizzou, I don't think. Again, as long as we have everybody coming back next year, because even if Burden, Weiss, and Mookie Cooper get hurt, I still trust Marquise Johnson, Joshua Manning, and James Madison to go out there next year and do something. And still good receivers.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth here. Another angle from missing out on Ryan Wingo too, with some of the reported numbers that he was receiving in NIL from Texas and Missouri, and the fact that Missouri didn't get him. It's like you had all this NIL money set aside for Ryan Wingo. Like, they went all in on Ryan Wingo to try and get him. They thought they had him. They didn't get him. And then it's like, well, we have all this money, and Ryan Wingo didn't come here, so let's throw some money at Courtney Crutchfield. Let's throw some money at Kawan Lacey. Let's throw some money at guys in the portal that you didn't know you were going to have before because you thought you were getting Ryan Wingo. So,
which is completely fine with me, because now we're going to be able to diversify our entire offense and defense without getting Wingo. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that because like I think I'd rather have Crutchfield, Lacey, and an
right.
offensive lineman from the portal instead of Ryan Wingo.
I mean, we have to think about it like this. We are talking about it like it is completely normal for Missouri to just go out, bam, number one corner in the transfer portal like that. Like that is what Drink did. That is insane. That we
Yeah,
could off stuff like that.
yeah, it's unprecedented times here at the University of Missouri when it comes to football recruiting. Um, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. So, Ole Miss is another school that had a similar season to Missouri. They're also hitting it off in the portal right now. They're hitting it off in high school recruiting. Now, Lane Kiffin, he's always been a good recruiter. Uh, he's also a really good coach. He's had multiple 10-win seasons at Ole Miss now. I see a lot of Missouri fans like on social media talking about, man, Lane Kiffin's killing it. Damn, I'm glad we don't play or Ole Miss next year, that kind of stuff. And I'll say this. I went on Ole Miss's rivals board yesterday to just look at the reaction to them missing out on Lacey. And they say the same things about Missouri. Like, man, Missouri's tough. They got a lot of resources there. We got to stop discounting them as a threat. Those kind of things. But another thing that I was going to say is that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, like I said, he's already had 2 10-win seasons since he's been there. He's pulled a lot of studs from the portal so far, probably even more so than Mizzou. But with the way that things are trending right now, you can hope to be Ole Miss a year from now, where you're basically just picking whoever the hell you want from the portal. Drinkwitz, we always talked about, hey, he's gotten some studs with going 6-6 and stuff, but what could he do if he won 10 games in a season? We talked about prior to heading into this portal season that Drinkwitz would have a lot of momentum with a 10-win season that could allow him to maybe hit a home run in the portal. And so far, things are looking really bright for Missouri right now. But, if you could stack up another 10-win season on top of this and everything like that, you really could have something here. You could have something special with this football program. And Eli Drinkwitz is coming, man. And the schedule release, that goes into what we're talking about too, because the schedule looks very favorable for Missouri next year. There's really no reason you shouldn't start off 4-0. And then I think there's like Vandy, you should be like 5-0 again this year.
It should be 4-0 going into Texas A&M.
Okay, so yeah, there's 4 games before Texas A&M. Yeah, and then you go 4-0 heading into Texas A&M. This is another year where you really should be stacking up wins. And even if you go 10-2 again, like nobody's disappointed with that. That gets you into the playoff.
Yeah.
And I think the way that Mizzou staff sees this is, okay, so we were very close to the playoff this year, even with the 14 format still being a thing. We have a chance. Brady Cook's coming back. Luther Burden's coming back. Our coaching staff is coming back. Let's go all in. Let's try to make the playoff next year. Let's try to go win this whole freaking thing. NIL donors, where are you at? Let's put a team together that can legitimately go win the whole thing. Mizzou is going all in this year. Go win the whole thing, right? Mizzou has a chance to do something really special. Eli Drinkwitz, the way he is recruiting right now, I really don't see. Obviously, the portal cycle is still going on, but I don't see any reason why next year would be anything other than another double-digit win season. That the goal should be the college football playoff. The goal should be winning it. That's what Drinkwitz should be preaching to his locker room right now. The goal is to win the national championship, especially because the SEC. I'm sure Drink is going to say, "Let's win the SEC first," because he always used to say, "Let's win the SEC East." But obviously, they're doing away with divisions next year, so it's just the SEC. But even if you don't win the SEC, you can still make the college football playoff, and the championship is still on the table. So if I was Drink, I'd be like, "Look, national championship, guys. That is your goal this year. That is what we're going for." Last year, it was something to prove. This year, it's unfinished business. You had those 2 games against LSU and Georgia that you really should have won. Let's win those games this year. Obviously, I know it's not LSU and Georgia, but Bama and Oklahoma. Can you seal the deal? And you don't have to beat both of them. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are going to chalk up Bama as a loss this year.
Yeah.
But if you go 11-1, no one is complaining about that.
if you go 11-1 and your one loss is to Bama, you're making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I mentioned it to you, but looking at our schedule, we should be 4-0 going into Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going to be our first real test. It also, I haven't looked at A&M's schedule, but it could be Elko's first real test because he's a new coach there. We don't know what we're going to get with Texas A&M. I haven't seen too much from them in the
They've
transfer.
lost a lot in the portal. They've lost a lot, so
I
that
feel,
bodes well for that matchup next year.
I mean, that's always what happens when there's a new coach.
Mm-hmm.
And Riley Leonard didn't follow Elko to A&M. He went to Notre Dame. But depending on how they look, we're going to be their first real test. They're going to be our first real test. It's not easy to play in Kyle Field, but I feel confident in winning that game. And then you have, I think it's UMass on the road, which is baffling still. And then we have against Auburn, which should both be wins. But don't sleep on Auburn next year because what they outside of the New Mexico State game, because they're clearly looking ahead for Bama and they did not care about anything else
Mm-hmm.
because they had already locked up a bowl game by that point. But they went on that 4-game win streak before that New Mexico State game, lost that New Mexico State game, then almost beat Bama if it wasn't for a 4th and 31 play. Auburn might be a team to watch out for. Like, we can't be sleeping on them. And then Bama, obviously, in Tuscaloosa. Whatever happens there, it happens. And then to finish off the year, we have a bye week, and then it's Oklahoma, which we'll get into it in a little bit. But the amount of talent that we've been able to just poach away from Oklahoma has been laughable.
Yeah.
And he should be able, like, I feel overwhelmingly confident in winning that football game, just based off of how the teams have looked. Because Oklahoma lost to Kansas. Sorry, you're not beating us. I don't think that they're going to beat us. At least they very well could, because Oklahoma's always going to be good. But the game that I'm the most worried about on this schedule next year, because I'm expecting to
Oh
beat,
my god.
is beat the shit out of Oklahoma. South Carolina on the road the next week scares the shit out of me, because that could easily be another Florida game, but it's on the road this time, which is scary because you can beat the shit out of Oklahoma like we beat the shit out of Tennessee, and then you're so high off that win and you just don't care about the next game and almost blow it. That's what we did this year. And if Drink is able to prove me wrong this year, that South Carolina game is going to be sticking in my head because they got Rocket Sanders and he was the number 2 recruit in the class. And I know that you think that Shane Beamer's overrated.
He's not just overrated. I just think he's straight up bad now.
Fair.
I mean,
But it's going to be in the back of my mind at that point in the season. If we are, I think it would be 9-1 at that point, assuming we lose to Bama and beat everybody else. If we are 9-1 at that point, or no, 8-1. Yeah. For 8-1 at that point, going into South Carolina late in the season, knowing what Beamer did last year or 2 years ago, and then, I mean, hell, he beat Kentucky this year. He wasn't supposed to do that. I mean, South Carolina, they kept it close against Clemson. They play good at the end of the year, and that being on the road, us kicking the shit out of them, that's their Super Bowl. Unironically, that will be their Super Bowl this year, is beating us.
I just can't. It's Drinkwitz owns Shane Beamer, and until Shane Beamer shows that he can even play a competitive game against Drinkwitz again, I have zero concern about losing a game like that. Now, I get the trap game, the fear of a trap game. I just don't think it's going to be South Carolina.
I mean, maybe it's Mississippi State, but I don't think that they're going to be very good this year.
They'll be an interesting one. They'll be an interesting one for sure. I know you. I want to touch on Auburn a little bit too. I think this year's Auburn team was I don't know how to put it. They were very hot and cold. That's one way to put it. Sometimes the talent really showed with them, and then other games you're like, "What the hell is going on at that program?" But I do think that's probably the worst team that Hugh Freeze is going to have, as long as he's the head coach there. They've also been able to get some dudes
Mhm.
um, recruiting since he's been there, so I expect them to be better next year. But that should still be a win. If Missouri's the team that we think they are, you should be Auburn next year. Um, Alabama and Oklahoma are the two.
Make or
Those
break.
are the yeah, those are the make or break. That's a good way to say it. Texas A&M, you don't want to get. I mean, they're still talented. They've lost a lot, but they're still talented. It'll be interesting to see what they look like. But again, if you have expectations for this team, especially if you're basing them off this past season, that should be a win. You know,
I,
so
I think that the absolute floor is like 7-5. Like if the season goes to complete shit, that means that we lose to A&M, we obviously lose to Bama, lose to Oklahoma, and then okay, I don't think that we lose both of like 8-4 is the bare minimum.
yeah, that's the floor.
Like 8-4, 7-5 if you want to count the Auburn game. Like one of Auburn, South Carolina, Mississippi State, like absolute floor is if we go 2-1 in those games and then lose to A&M, Bama, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
No, that's
yeah.
still or damn, yeah.
8-4 should definitely be the floor,
Yeah.
and that's probably considered a disappointment. But I think the schedule is rather favorable. I see a lot of people still complaining about going to UMass and playing that game. I get it. We probably shouldn't be traveling to UMass, but that stadium should be filled with Mizzou fans. So if we can fill it
UMass,
with Mizzou fans, then I'm cool with it.
if we go 1-11 and there's one team that I want to beat, it's UMass.
What do you have against UMass?
Nothing. I just want to beat them.
I mean, yeah, that would suck if we lost to UMass. Their stadium seats 17,000, and it's weird how because I know Jim Sturk was the one that originally kind of made this schedule for this season, and it's like, what was he thinking when he scheduled all these games, and why are we doing like this tour throughout the state of Boston? Like, because we also play Boston College, that one's at home at least, but
Thank God. If we had to play Boston College again at BC, I would be. I wouldn't be able to watch that. That's honestly probably the worst game of the Eli Drinkwitz era.
yeah, that was one of those toss-up games that you should have won. And that game really still irks me because had we played them later in the season, we beat them. It's just the defense was a complete disaster at that point in the year, but it, it's over. We've moved on. We're on to bigger and better things.
We're
Let's get back to recruiting.
actually 6-6.
Yeah, so it's been quite the year for Sixth.
Drinking and ice.
Yeah, he went from drinking six to drinking NY6. It's been quite the turn. Speaking of turnarounds, though, so let's shift the focus back to recruiting. I know at the very beginning of this year, a lot of people were freaking out when we were missing on a bunch of our top targets. A lot of kids from the state of Missouri we were missing out on. But you go and look at Missouri's class now. Now it'll vary depending on who you look at, but just looking at 247sports.com right now, Missouri's class ranks 29th in the nation, and they're slated to add a slew of 4-star commitments here in the next week. They'll probably finish in the low 20s. I mean, it's like this is a down year for Drinkwitz recruiting, then I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much to add. Like there really isn't because we have so many guys returning. So and we're filling a lot of holes in the portal right now by getting Torian Pride, and we've basically filled the running back position. One more wouldn't hurt, but I think you feel pretty good with the running back duo that you already locked up so far. So
Yeah, and I mean, last year they signed a lot, or they signed a pretty big class. This class was always going to be smaller, and that's why I see a lot of fans of other schools. They'll tweet out our ranking before signing day and try to flex it on us, or talk about our rank in the SEC because we're still like 12th or 13th or something in the SEC right now. But first of all, that just goes to show how competitive the SEC is. You can have a top 20 class and not even be top 10 in this conference. Meanwhile, if you were to look at like the ACC, Mizzou would be like a top 3 class in the ACC. That's just the gap between the SEC and everybody else. But also, people don't understand that average star rating matters more than how many commits that you have. Our average star rating, I think, already puts us in like the top 20 or so. Because I mean, we have a 5-star committed in this class. We have, 4 stars littered all over the class. This is still a really good class. It's just going to be a smaller class this year, but great quality in the guys that they have committed.
Exactly. So I'm not too worried about where Mizzou is going to be at to start the year. I'm honestly just ready to start the next season. Like I am ready to just full gear, thinking about nothing but Mizzou football for 14 weeks and college football playoffs. Like I am already mentally ready for that.
Yeah, already moved past basketball season. You're ready to get into football season?
No, I haven't moved past basketball season because Dennis is doing a pretty good job in recruiting himself. He just wasn't able to hit the transfer portal. He kind of shit the bed there.
Yeah, he did in fact shit the bed in the transfer portal, but Drinkwitz is doing the exact opposite. We'll close it out.
To get a good big man, Drink's already been able to fill running back. There's still a few positions that Drink does have to fill, like tackle and linebackers, but we're already in on a few guys.
Yeah, because we're about to talk about that now. So this was a big visit weekend. So Drinkwitz was actually on ESPN the other day.
Last thing about basketball.
Go ahead.
We were the better team than Kansas outside of 5 minutes. We would have beat.
And those 5 minutes are why we lost. So thanks, Gates. You shit the bed again.
Don't blame him for going into Allen and almost beating KU with.
I know. I'm just kidding around. If I were to blame anyone, it'd be Nick Honor and his shot selection.
Oh my God. Okay, back to football.
Yeah, so we'll close it out with some portal stuff. So Drinkwitz was on ESPN the other day, and they were talking to him about the schedule release. He was actually in the home of a recruit doing an in-home visit at the time of that interview.
Funny.
It actually ended up being Chris McClellan, the Florida defensive tackle. That he was a guy that Mizzou recruited heavily out of high school. That was kind of before he blew up, and then he ended up going to Florida in the end. When he entered the portal, a lot of people thought it was a done deal to Oklahoma, but Mizzou seems to really be in on this thing. Drinkwitz saw him in his home this past week. He's on campus now as we speak on his visit to Missouri. I got to feel good about Missouri's chances there.
I said to you that we offered him.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Oh,
yeah, he was the guy that you sent to the group chat.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. If we are able to grab him, and we'll talk about Cayden Green a little bit. I wanted to avoid saying his name until the very end because he's the biggest one. But
yeah,
if you can grab those guys, along with the fact that you stole Williams Nwaneri from them this past high school cycle, like that game is going to have some juice to it when Missouri plays Oklahoma this year.
Obviously, a rivalry restored, but at the same time, like over the past year and a half, it's really like next to Arkansas, Kansas, all the time, K-State. Did I say the Piggies? Like outside of a few of the SEC rivals that we've made, I'd honestly say like my hatred for Oklahoma is at a pretty solid high right now.
Yeah, I mean, their fans really piss me off because they just seem to know zero of what they're talking about. That's really the most frustrating thing about it. I mean, even Arkansas fans, I will see teaming up with Mizzou fans to talk shit about Oklahoma. Like that's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Like
even Arkansas fans are stupid. I mean, they are dumb, and even they just you would think they're Einstein compared to Oklahoma fans.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma fans are just terrible. So possibly stealing Cayden Green away from them as somebody that's from Lee Summit, knows a lot of the history of Lee Summit North and the talent that they've been able to produce, knowing the coach there, and just knowing how much like that entire LSN staff tries to send people to Oklahoma, and seeing that Mizzou is just picking them away left and right. We got Membu, we got Williams Navarre, and Cayden Green is like he only has visits to us in Oregon. So
Yeah, and I like the fact that we have the last visit too. And I'd be shocked if he didn't make it out of that Oregon visit. Um, I know Mizzou made it really tough for him to say no to them when he was coming out of high school. Missouri is going to be very competitive in the NIL game. We know that. They've already shown that they're extremely competitive when it comes to NIL. Oregon, if there's someone that you know for sure has more NIL money than Mizzou, it's Oregon. But
thanks,
Mizzou is,
Phil.
yeah, but Mizzou is much closer to home than Oregon. I think that plays a factor. Then you have the two high school teammates, Membo and Winery, already being Missouri Tigers. So you got to feel good about Missouri's chances here. And I even go as far as to say that they're probably the leader.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not a done deal, but I mean, to have that last visit, to have the connections you already have. I know people were pointing out that Drinkwitz was following him the night before he entered the portal. This one's going to be fun. If they can grab him, you probably have your left tackle for next year. He steps in immediately for Javon Foster.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so it would be such a massive get. He immediately becomes one of the highest ranked guys in the portal. That it would just be such a massive grab at a position of need for Drinkwitz and company. I hope they can pull it out. But Oregon, don't count out Oregon. Like I said, this is not done to Missouri. Don't count out Oregon. But if Mizzou does pull this off, the excitement's going to be at an all-time high for next year.
Foster, if not better.
Oh, yeah. As far as like a long-term NFL prospect, yeah. I think he's above him. So we're hopeful for Cayden Green. A couple other guys that are worth noting that should be on Mizzou fans' radar. So there's Darius Smith, the Georgia outside linebacker. I sent him to you the other day. So he left Georgia after just a few games with them this past year. But someone pointed me to an article talking about, and it was from like a Georgia publisher, and he was named as a breakout candidate for 2023. Obviously, that didn't happen, but he's in the portal now. The measurables are pretty insane with him. He's a freak athlete. This is one of those guys that I always love to grab. It's a former, highly rated guy from another school. Just didn't quite work out for whatever reason. Theo Weiss. Joseph Charleston is one. I know he had a rough year this past year, but he was pretty good last year, and he was a 4-star that went to Clemson. But this guy, he was a 5.9 4-star on Rivals.com as a high school recruit. He is 6'5", 240 pounds. Seems like he can do a little bit of everything. I would love this edition right here. I think this is an under-the-radar one that more Mizzou fans should be hoping that happens because I'll take just about any athlete off Georgia's roster and see what they can do here.
Didn't they have another linebacker?
I was going to bring him up next. Forget the guy's name. He was the guy who broke his arm against Missouri. Jamin Dumas Johnson, the other Georgia linebacker. I think he had 7 sacks or something like that for them. Let me look. Or no, I'm sorry. That was wrong. He had 3.5 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss. I think he led Georgia in tackles in that game against Missouri before he got hurt. This is another one that, I would love to grab him. I think you could definitely make room for him. He's probably going to have a lot of other suitors, though, in the portal, but Mizzou would probably throw its hat in the ring.
I mean, if you're going away from Georgia, Georgia's lost a lot of talent in this portal.
Yeah, they have.
But if that's a guy that we can pick up on, because linebacker is really the biggest weak spot on this team now, because I think that we're at least okay at corner. I'd still like to add one more guy. I'd say that we're fine at running back. Assuming that we get Cayden Green, we'll be fine on the offensive line. Didn't you say that we were in on another center?
Yeah, so Texas A&M guy, or he's an interior OL. I don't know if he'd play center at Mizzou or not, but Remington Strickland is his name, offensive lineman from Texas A&M.
So possibly getting a guy like him. I know that we got the Colorado flip. We're fine at tight end with Norfleet, I'd assume. Maybe one backup guy because I know that we lost Max Weisner. But like, linebacker is really the only position left that you really got to fill, and you need both of them because Bailey and Hopper are probably going to be because Bailey was a graduate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
He was out of he was out of eligibility. I don't. People talked about him maybe getting a medical red shirt because of how much time he missed this year. Medical red shirts are
yeah,
kind of hard to get, and
right.
also he might just want to move on. I mean, he's been here for like 5 or 6 years or whatever now, so I don't know.
There's
I
no reason to bet on Chad Bailey anymore. Hopper's going to the league, so you got to get two guys, and I like our depth there with Hicks and a few of the other guys. They were solid, especially in the Arkansas game. But definitely need to get at least two at linebacker. That's the biggest thing the Drink has to do.
Yeah, so and there's another one that's in the portal that I'm pretty sure is visiting Mizzou this weekend. That's Corey Flagg, the linebacker from Miami. He was coached and recruited by Blake Baker when he was at Miami. This past year for the Hurricanes, he had 6 tackles for a loss, 48 total tackles. That would be a guy that could um, start for you next year, probably fill in for Chad Bailey after he leaves. And then you still got Tristan Newson, who I think is going to be really good. Chuck Hicks is a good reserve. You probably don't want him starting, though. So you could look to add a couple linebackers with Corey Flagg probably being one of them. And I think Mizzou's probably got a really good shot with him. And then I know you said linebacker is like the last position they truly need, but I'd also throw defensive tackle in there because they lose a lot. I know Christian Williams is coming back, but Jaden Jernigan is out of eligibility. Josh Landry's gone, I believe. And there's probably someone else off the top of my head I'm forgetting. Behind them, they don't have too many guys that have played a lot. I know the Duke defensive tackle Aeneas Peebles, who had 4.5 sacks last year for the Blue Devils, visited. It looks like he released the top 5 actually of SMU, Louisville, Mizzou, Virginia Tech, and Colorado.
We're the best team and the best NIL.
Yeah, I would think we have a pretty good shot at Peebles, and that would be a pretty big get too. He was pretty disruptive for Duke this past year. He's one of their better players that just hit the portal after Mike Elko left. That would be a really good get because I love to see this team replenishing the defensive line after they do lose a lot with Darius Robinson leaving and all those guys. But you bring back Johnny Walker, add Williams Winery, Christian Williams, Aeneas Peebles, grab a couple more guys from the portal maybe for depth. I think you really have a good defensive line for next year.
I mean, for sure, having Williams Noir is going to be insane. Johnny Walker, I think, gets a little bit of a bad rap with Mizzou fans. I really like him. I like the energy that he brings to the game. I know that
Me too.
That LSU game that he got thrown out of. Like, it was complete bullshit, and a lot of Mizzou fans were mad at him for getting that the first unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that he got was complete bullshit. And it was something that he didn't even do. So I think that Mizzou fans need to reimagine Johnny Walker because he was a very solid pass rusher last year, and you give him an off season to develop. That's a guy that I really think can break out next year. Williams,
Yeah.
again, hopefully he can be a massive disruptor. Christian Williams is solid. I mean, yeah, it's really just depth on the defensive line. You can never have too much depth. Getting that, you said Peebles, that's his name?
Yeah, from Duke.
Getting him, that would be cool. But it's really just getting depth behind those guys. I know that we lost DJ Westlock next to what's the quarterback's name that we literally just lost?
Gabari Johnson. Yeah, I was going to bring him up at the end, but
besides Johnson, Westlock was probably our biggest loss on the defensive line because he was probably going to get he was going to get more snaps this year than he did last year. So losing him hurts a little bit, but again, I still think that Drake and his ability to find guys in the portal to replace that is like he has. I have confidence in him.
Yeah, Mizzou hasn't really lost too much to the portal. It's mainly guys that didn't play here. Gabari Johnson that happened right before we started recording, the 4-star quarterback from the 2023 class. That one was a little bit of a surprise, but then when you kind of like think about it a little bit more, it's not too shocking just because Brady Cook was coming back for another year. Sam Horn doesn't look like he's going anywhere, and he'll probably step in for Cook next year. Jake Garcia was probably ahead of Gabari Johnson, although I think he graduates after next year. But then you have Aiden Glover, the freshman who a lot of people are excited about. And I think Gabari Johnson may have just seen the writing on the wall. I've already seen some rumors that Oregon State is the rumored landing spot for Johnson. Johnson's from Washington. That would be a lot closer to home. Oregon State's a solid program. So I think that's one where if he leaves, you don't feel too bad about it. And you just got to feel good for him finding playing time somewhere closer to home.
If he can find playing time at what should be Power 5 school, then I mean, yeah, good for him. But yeah, I mean, he really just didn't have a spot on the Missouri roster.
He didn't have a path to playing time. It was blurry at best. So I think that pretty much covers just about everything. I'm sure there's some high school recruits or whatever that I'm forgetting, but they'll be guys that make their decisions. We'll cover them if they commit to Missouri.
There's another guard that we lost. Forget his name.
A guard that we lost. Oh, EJ Ndoma Ogar? Yeah. Yeah. But Mizzou should be fine along the offensive line. They really just got to fill that left tackle spot. Left tackle is my only concern. If they get Cayden Green, I think he can play left tackle. And then I think they got plenty of guys that they like.
The rest of the line's returning, so.
Yeah, so you got Cameron Johnson, Tollison, and let's hope to God he can learn how to snap this offseason.
Membu.
Yeah, and then you got Membo. And you also, we didn't talk about him too much, but we got the JUCO offensive tackle, Javen Richardson.
That we missed the Memphis tackle that's visiting this weekend.
Yeah, McKylan Pounders. Although I don't, if they get Cayden Green, I wonder if he's still a take.
Yeah. I doubt
but we'll see.
They'll get Green.
We'll see, though. We'll see. But that's pretty much everything. I think that will do it for our transfer portal palooza. Recruiting. It's drinks on a heater right now. It's a fun time to be a Mizzou fan. So signing day is next week. We'll probably cover that. Hopefully there's no surprises. And by surprises, I mean flips from Missouri commits going to other places. Now it'd be cool if Missouri could flip some other guys at other places, but I don't really see the high school class getting that much bigger. I think the main focus is on portal recruiting right now. I don't think you'll really see any guys go to Missouri that just weren't on our radar or anything like that. But yeah, exciting times. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Brayden, before we go, I'm assuming you want to plug Show Me Movies.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Iron Claw about 2 weeks before it's out in wide release, and there's only like 2 other reviews for it. So if you want to know my thoughts on a movie that comes out in about 2 weeks, I think it comes out on the 22nd. Iron Claw, really good. I don't have anything else. Let's beat the shit out of Ohio State. Make sure that we lock.
Oh yeah, the Cotton Bowl. Forgot the Cotton Bowl is happening in 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's beat the shit out of Ohio State. We'll cover that, obviously. New state or the new North End Zone. Not really. There's not much to talk about there, but there's a little bit more of a development on that earlier today that I saw. DRF posted some article about it.
Yeah, they hired a contracting firm or whatever to start working on the plans. And then there was like an article that kind of talked about a little more specifically what they're trying to do. Premium seating, an open air concourse for fans to hang out and stuff, new bathrooms, new concessions, all that stuff. So
more troughs.
Yeah, well, it's just nice to see that the new North Concourse is actually happening. They're building something there. They're enclosing the stadium. There's going to be a new video board, all that cool stuff. Again, exciting time to be a Mizzou fan. A lot of good things happening for this football program right now. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up there, guys. So make sure you check out all of Brayden stuff in the description. It will be there as always. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so some more Mizzou fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com. And we'll see you all in the next one. MIZ.
ZOU.